Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure talking to you today. So first of all, thanks a lot for the invitation and for the great conference and the organizers for putting all this together. I'm Simon Sonntag, so I'm the CEO and co-founder of Virtonomy. And what we're doing, we make medical device innovation happen again with the use of digital patient twins. But first of all, why are we doing this? So in my 10 years of experience in the medical device industry, I've experienced firsthand that the biggest challenge for the developers is the risk to fail in a clinical trial. This is associated with more than 80%. The cost to get there is now exceeding $100 million for high-risk products, and time to market can be over 10 years, what is way too much. And it's not getting easier with new regulations and demands like the MDR that we have in Europe. So the conventional process to get there, the source of evidence, are in vitro experiments in the lab that are very time-consuming, then also ethically questionable animal trials and highly risky human trials. All of these are associated with strong limitations and high costs. That's why a new era has emerged, the so-called in silico testing, so proving safety and effectiveness completely in the computer. This is now recognized by the regulators in Europe and also in the US and beyond as the fourth type of model. And the FDA is even predicting that within the next years, over 40% of the regulatory process will be covered by virtual patients and simulation. But how does this work? So the conventional process looks like this. You start with the concept, go over prototyping, manufacturing, go into animal trials, benchtop testing, and then after many years and high cost, the device is tested in human being for the first time. When you fail here, you have to go back to the concept. It was associated with high costs and demand there. With our approach, it's possible to include virtual patients and simulation early on to reduce the risk to fail in a later stage. Also, animal testing and also experimental testing can be substituted with virtual testing here. And clinical trials are refined and extended. So imagine that the device is not just tested in 20 patients or 50 patients, but in hundreds and thousands of virtual patients. By this, we can significantly reduce cost, time, and risk to fail, also increase the evaluation confidence, and also prove safety and effectiveness prior and after the clinical trials. And also close the disparity gap of underrepresented populations like women, children, rare diseases, ethnic groups. So how do we do this? So we have created 𝐉𝐸patients, our patented end-to-end solution where we combine digital patient twins together with artificial intelligence, multi-physics simulation, and predictive analytics. Here, the medical device developer and later also the clinician can then use a complete virtual environment for the development, testing, and then also clinical intervention planning. This can also be integrated in the total product lifecycle, from concept to product post-market surveillance. Here, the user can then use our database that we have and created there of thousands of digital patient twins of humans and animals that can be applied for this. That is all coming from real clinical data. With this, you can create your virtual patient cohort and perform virtual implantation processes. You can then also advance to statistical population analysis, for example, to test inclusion-exclusion criteria, subpopulation groups, define also worst cases that you are testing there. And then for an individual patient, but also for the whole population, you can perform simulations of solid mechanics, fluid dynamics, and also electrophysics to test the interaction of the device with the blood, for example, to then test safety and effectiveness. The results of this can then be generated in a regulatory compliant report and submitted to the regulatory bodies for approval processes. I want to show now two examples from our use cases and from customers that we have. The first one is about transcatheter applications. So for example, when you have heart valves that you're implanting via transfemoral route to the heart. So you have different access routes to get there and a lot of limitations currently and challenges to get there. There's the catheter to access the proper situation, the proper position of the device, but then also durability aspects of the vessel of this device, crimping and expansion of the leaflets of the artificial heart valves in that. So based on imaging data that we have accumulated here, computer tomography, MRI data, we can then reconstruct such virtual patients as you can see here, and then also including all different and then high resolution organs and parts of this, like the ribs, but also all the vessels that are associated with that. This can then be included in a statistical analysis. For example, here it was the inferior vena cava that you can see here to the left, the different occasions and the dimensions on this. Because the developer, they want to understand how does the population look like? What means a small patient or a medium-sized patient, a large patient? So we can have here on these dimensions, like this is now the length of this inflow for that part. Then you can have this distribution curve, as you can see here. So it means to the left are rather the smaller dimension patients, and to the left the larger dimension patients. Now what you want to have is, of course, you want to have a solution of your device over the whole population group. So then we can have the decision, do we make different sizes of devices to cover this? Do we want to have one size that is covering most of the patients, and so on? So all this data can then be included there to define these patient cohorts. This can then be also integrated in our statistical population analysis. So to the right, you can see here a three-dimensional evaluation then of different population groups. So each of the dots is representing a real patient with a combination then of different parameters that you can select off. Here it's clustered between male and female patients, so you can cluster them also and see what is the difference in this. For example, when you have a device, later we will show another example of a total visual heart, to see how can this be implanted in the full thorax, how does it fit into these patient groups. To the left, you can also see then an annulus dimension. So this is then where the heart valve leaflets or the heart valve is implanted. And you can see then the minimum patient with the inner circle. The outer circle is then representing the maximum dimensions of these patient groups. And the green one, the average ones. And basically what you want to have with your device is between the inner and outer circles to cover this range. So you can also here say, when you say your device should fit in 80% of your population, what does this mean? This can then be combined to simulations. So on the left, you can also see a cannula simulation, how it's implanted then in the device. You can also investigate critical areas of high stress that is then critical in these patient groups for rupture risks of the vessel, but also then the device. To the right, also steering capabilities, because very often of these transcatheter applications, you have very complex access routes. So this is coming here from the inferior vena cava to the pulmonary valve through the tricuspid valve. So you have a lot of bending there, and you have to investigate if this bending then also works with your catheter, not just for one patient, for the whole population group. And this is then what we can also do as the next stage. So here you can see then also the crimping and expansion of the stent frame in the device. And this simulation can then be performed for the whole population group. So you can see for 50 patients and aortas in that case, the outcome of this. So the combination of material properties with the dimensions on this, and then the resulting stresses and also strain on the patients. We are also including here fluid dynamics in that. For example, this is a benchtop test of heart valves in a fluid channel that is also according to ISO standards. And we also do a lot of validation and verification in combining this and with experiments and comparing this to the experimental outcomes. In the end, then what you generate, these outcomes can then be generated in a report, like supporting the technical file, but also giving rationale for animal trials, for choosing the proper animal model, and so on, that is then submitted, as you can see here, in a report then to the regulatory bodies. We have in addition also other applications in this, like to the top left, this is then also for artificial heart valves, so we can also implant this for replacing then the native heart with a blood pump, and using this then also for fitting studies and also diversity of the thorax size. We also have the integration of virtual reality. And you can also find our booth downstairs and also experience our virtual reality. As you can see here, where you can then virtually implant the device in the patient. Also, we have cannula flow simulations to the top right, where you can also investigate then how does the fluid dynamics interact there. Also electrophysics simulation, where we also include then the muscle pumping of the heart and electrophysiological conditions of the heart that is integrated there. And also expanding from cardiovascular, which is our key focus at the beginning, now to other industries like the orthopedics industry. And the feedback that we get from our customers prove also the benefits that we promise. On the first hand, that it's possible to significantly reduce resources and also the risk to fail, also being an enormous benefit in speeding up the processes, providing tremendously valuable insights and information that is not possible with conventional use, and being a key tool in the development and approval process of the medical devices. So thanks a lot. And if you're interested to learn more, you can, of course, contact me. You can visit us at a booth or just ask questions over there. So thank you very much.